I now live with my parents, so why don't you, a stranger, just move into a cheap place? What's the big deal, right? I thought my husband would make me happy, but turns out he was just using me. His family betrayed me, and I was really shocked. It seemed like they hadn't even realized how naive they were. But if they kick me out, who's going to pay the bills? I realized there was no point in being part of this family, so I knew what I had to do next. I got in touch with everyone and started getting ready. What happened to all the stuff? I had a company come and take it all away. The next day, I called another company and got rid of all the furniture and appliances. My husband freaked out and started yelling. My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm 35 years old. I've been working from home since I finished college. I only have to travel once a month, but I work full-time. My company has been really understanding because both of my legs are disabled, so I use a wheelchair to get around. This happened because I had a motorcycle accident in college. A car crashed into me from behind on the highway, and I was thrown into the air. It felt like everything was moving really slowly. This is it for me, I remember thinking as I flew through the air. Luckily, I didn't die, but my legs got injured and I can't move them anymore. I've been doing rehab ever since, but they probably won't get better. I've been in a wheelchair for years now. I guess I'll probably stay single for the rest of my life. Once I accepted my condition, I started wanting to get married again. One day, my friends arranged a blind date for me, and that's when I met Ken, who's 5 years older than me. Despite his age, he looked younger. What surprised me was how immature he acted for a 40-year-old. He's very straightforward, which means he doesn't hold back. After seeing me in a wheelchair, he didn't hesitate to ask all sorts of questions like, how do you do everyday things like eating or chores? Can you manage work? Are you independent in the bathroom or for bathing? While others tiptoed around the topic, Ken asked me everything bluntly. Most people might find his approach rude, but I actually liked that he was genuinely interested in me. We went on a few more dates and eventually became a couple. I believed I could find happiness with him. At that time, I couldn't imagine being with anyone else who would want to be with me forever. So when Ken proposed just 6 months into our relationship, I was thrilled. But things took a turn after we got married. When Ken and I moved in together, we chose my rented house, which is a bit expensive but very wheelchair-friendly, probably because the previous tenant made it that way. Ken liked the spaciousness. Since I spent most of my time at home, I ended up doing most of the housework. Sometimes when I was tired, I'd ask him for help, but he'd just say he was too tired and wouldn't lift a finger, not even to help me bathe. Seriously, I'm not doing that, Ken said when I asked him for help. I technically can manage on my own, but it takes a lot longer. When I lived alone, I had a caregiver come twice a week to assist me in the bath. I was used to managing the other 5 days on my own, but I always wished Ken would help. It would be so much quicker. Every time I spent a long time getting into the bath, I stopped asking for the caregiver's help because Ken said it was a waste of money. As I was bathing, I started feeling tired in my arms. The bathroom was originally designed to be accessible, which was one of the reasons we chose the place. But when Ken took a bath first, he wouldn't tidy up afterward. He'd leave the bath bucket out and shampoo bottles on the floor, which made things even more difficult for me. Hey, could you please think about making it a little easier for me when I bathe alone? Just let me have a bath without overthinking it, I asked him. But no matter what I said, Ken wouldn't listen. This house is designed for you to live comfortably. I moved in for you and you still complain, Ken argued. You wanted to move to Ken. When did I ever say that? This house was originally my place. That's why it's set up for someone in a wheelchair. The first time I invited Ken over, he seemed impressed by the spaciousness and the appliances. I'd love to live here after we're married, he said, admiring everything. But now he complains, saying things like, this handrail is such a nuisance. It's like living in an old person's home. Why would you say that? Yeah, I should have looked more closely before, I admitted to myself. It finally dawned on me after we started living together. Ken married me because of the house, the appliances, and the fact that I could manage household chores despite my disability. Ken received praise from his colleagues and friends for being a wonderful husband, but that's far from the truth. He's just taking advantage of the fact that I can do everything by myself despite my disability. And on top of that, he's been jobless and partying every night since we started dating. Realizing all this after getting married is heartbreaking and makes me want to cry. But despite everything, I haven't broken up with him. I keep telling myself that there must be some love there since we got married, right? Hey, can you give me some allowance? Ken asked. You received some just the other day, didn't you? I replied. Yeah, but I've already spent it, Ken admitted. Slowly, Ken started to depend on me for money without putting in any effort to work for it. I decided to reach out to Ken's mother for advice. Ken doesn't seem interested in working. What should I do? He's always been hardworking. Maybe he just needs a break. Even though she told me I could talk to her about anything, she always sided with her son. She'd say, it's natural since he's an only child. But I wasn't convinced. Since I've lost both my parents, I have no other family to turn to. I felt completely lost. I thought about discussing it with a friend, but the last time I mentioned my problems, they told me, I wish I had problems like that. Ken always seems to appear fine on the surface. That evening, Ken confronted me. Did you go talking to Mom about my work? He accused. Yeah, why? Would it bother an older person like her? I can't believe you. I responded. Seriously? Well, maybe you should work so I don't have to worry, I retorted. Ken stormed out after that. It's typical of him. He always leaves when things don't go his way and then returns drunk early in the morning. I'm back, babe, he slurred. It's early, don't disturb the neighbors, I cautioned. Keep it down, I added. Shut up. Don't boss me around, he snapped back. When he's drunk, he's out of control. All I can do in situations like these is stay quiet and endure it. I think I'm reaching my breaking point. I began to entertain the idea, but the thought of facing loneliness again was heart-wrenching. I was torn between enduring the current situation or spending the rest of my life alone. The idea of divorce started to weigh heavily on my mind. Then, out of nowhere, Ken brought up the idea of living with his parents. What? You mean they'd move in here? I asked, surprised. No, they'll move in here. Ken replied as if it was already decided that they would move in, without even discussing it with me. While I understand the desire to be close to aging parents, both of Ken's parents are still healthy. I couldn't understand why they would want to leave their own home to come live with us. Do they really need to stay here? It's going to be crowded with 4 people, and I work from home, so it'll be inconvenient. I expressed my concerns. You're always thinking about yourself, huh? I never thought you were this selfish, Ken accused. I'm just saying, why do they need to move here when they have their own place? Our place is bigger, more modern, and has all the conveniences. Plus, it's accessible for elderly people, I reasoned. If Ken's parents moved in, I'd have to be on my toes during work hours. Ken is rarely home, but his parents would likely be around a lot since they're retired, sharing the bathroom, kitchen. I already move slower than most people, and I could easily imagine the strain of such a living situation. Can I have some time to think? I asked. You better hurry up. We don't have much time, Ken replied curtly. Despite Ken's insistence that there wasn't much time, he wasted no time in bringing his parents over by the weekend. It seemed like they had already discussed this move extensively. I've been thinking, maybe you should consider moving to a facility, Ken suggested. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A facility for me? I was taken aback. Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You have your own limitations, right? In a facility, they take care of everything, Ken explained. It seemed like he wasn't just considering his parents moving in, but also the idea of sending me away. I'd visit you from time to time, he added casually. That statement jolted me awake. If not now, then when? Ken, what do you think I am to you, huh? You're my husband, right? Would you really tell your beloved wife to go to a facility? I confronted him. Hold on. When did I say I love you, Michelle? Ken's response made my anger boil. It was becoming increasingly clear that Ken was using me. Hadn't I known it all along? Wasn't it my fault for letting things get to this point? I felt like I needed to draw a line. Then, to my disbelief, Ken uttered even more shocking words. In this house, I'm going to live with my parents. You, an outsider, can go live in some cheap facility, he declared. What'd you just say? I looked to his parents, hoping for some support, but they just had unsettling grins on their faces. Why are you laughing? I demanded. What's the big deal, huh? Ken's parents responded with indifference. It seemed like things had been escalating too quickly lately. I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe they had their eyes on my home even before we got married. I knew I had to act fast and get these people out. Please leave, I said firmly. What? Leave now, I reiterated when they hesitated. How can you talk to my parents like that? Ken snapped, his anger boiling over. It was like I was seeing the real Ken for the first time. He was yelling at me with such fury. If he cared so much for his parents, why didn't he work hard and build them a house? Why did he have to take mine? My head felt like it was on fire. It's okay, Ken. Michelle must have been shocked since we came unexpectedly. His mother intervened. We just came to check the place today, his father added. Yeah, we need to check before moving in. Looks like there are more appliances than last time. Seems comfy to live in. It became clear they were here to stake a claim on my home. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself as I filled my lungs with oxygen. Then a sudden question popped into my mind. If I leave, how are they planning to survive? His parents are on a pension, and Ken's just a part-timer. I'm covering all the rent and living expenses. Who's going to pay the $2,800 a month? Do his parents think Ken's earning the living expenses? I voiced my concerns, but they were ignored as his parents cheerfully left. Ken followed them. I'm going to stay at my parents' tonight. Hold on, we need to talk, he said as he left. There's nothing to talk about. I, the man of the house, have decided. I won't change my mind, he declared before leaving me alone in shock. But I couldn't just stay like that. I immediately called a real estate agent I knew. Ken didn't return that night, probably celebrating with his parents. I quickly sorted out essential and non-essential belongings. When Ken returned the next day, he saw the organized stuff and laughed. Oh, started packing. Found a place to move to already? Ken asked, surprised by my swift action. Yes, I have, I replied, handing him a card. And here's the card of a divorce lawyer. Here you go, Ken. From now on, let's communicate through the lawyer. A divorce? Why? If you're kicking me out, there's no point in being married anymore, right? Ken tried to reason. Ken seemed taken aback by the mention of divorce. You can't live without me, right? He added, almost as a question. I don't understand what you mean. Who else would marry you? Ken responded, his arrogance showing. I can live on my own, but you said you wanted to get married. I reminded him. It was only then that I realized how arrogant and overconfident Ken was. He approached me thinking I was a lonely, disabled single woman. I'm independent, have money, and never struggle with my living. Plus, I stay home all the time, so I handle all the chores for him. I'm the ideal woman. Money keeps coming in even if he doesn't work. He thought I wouldn't leave because I couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was shocked when I casually brought up divorce. Why? You know, if you divorce me, you might be single for the rest of your life, Ken warned, revealing his insecurity. Well, if it means living a married life with you, I'd rather be single forever, I asserted. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't for you to decide. I added, my usually submissive demeanor giving way to defiance. Ken seemed flustered, and I could tell he was panicking. I never thought he was such a weak man. I realized I had been putting up with him for far too long. Once I made the decision to divorce him, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had been too focused on getting married. Anyway, you don't have to move out right away. I didn't mean to rush you into a facility that soon, I said. Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry, you won't find a place that fast. Think it over, okay? Ken replied, trying to regain control of the situation. I've already secured a place, so it's all right, I informed Ken. What? Wait a minute, isn't this too soon? Ken responded, clearly taken aback. I observed Ken's shifting attitudes, from smugness to panic. Dealing with him was becoming increasingly irritating as I calmed down. The facility staff are informed and know about my situation, so everything's fine. I reassured him, determined to move forward with my decision. When did you even set all this up? Were you preparing all along? Ken asked, clearly surprised by my sudden revelation. Yes, even before I met you, actually. I had been considering my retirement and had my eye on a certain facility. It's more like a condo. After an injury during my hospital stay, I read various investment books. I had decided to invest in stocks and real estate. I had diversified investments between my salary and my parents' inheritance. The facility I had my eye on, I had already purchased and had been renting it out for income. I never mentioned this to Ken. It's my hidden asset, I explained. We don't need to get a divorce. I get it. You can stay here. Let's live with my parents, Ken suggested. Do you not get it? Why would I ever do that? I responded firmly, feeling empowered by my newfound independence and decision-making. He seems pretty dense. Even after bringing up divorce, he still seems to believe he's the only one for me, I thought to myself. Sorry, but my mind's made up. What's your problem? I confronted Ken. You're so selfish. If you come crying back later, it's not my problem, Ken retorted. I won't be, so don't worry, I replied confidently, determined to move forward without him. Ken fell silent, lost in thought. Hours passed as I continued packing up my things. Then, I overheard Ken making a phone call. It seemed like he was speaking to his parents. It struck me as pathetic that he needed to rely on them for such decisions. Eventually, Ken approached me. Fine, we'll get a divorce. Just leave quickly, he said begrudgingly. Perhaps he would miss having me around to take care of the household chores. But he likely saw living with his parents as a way to avoid them. With that, Ken left for his parents' home. I'm going to talk to my folks about what's next. Get ready to move out quickly, he informed me. Yes, I'll do that, I replied, ready to start a new chapter of my life without him. I finished moving all my stuff within a week. During that time, Ken never showed up. We met again a day after the move was completed. As I was settling into my new home, Ken called me outside and asked, Hey, what's going on? This place is almost empty. Where are the appliances? I had a service pick up those items for me, I replied calmly. What? I had called a service the next day and had them collect all the furniture and appliances, Ken exclaimed, clearly agitated. My husband's frustration grew and he began grumbling. Not only Ken, but also his parents were there. All the appliances here were bought by me. They are all from when I was single. The only thing that's yours is right there, he pointed out. There were only 3 cardboard boxes. I did leave the clear clothing container we bought after marriage, I added. Michelle, we can't live with this. We need to split the property if we're divorcing, Ken insisted. That's right. We can't live here like this, his mother chimed in. What are you talking about? Nobody can live here, Ken protested. What do you mean? The rent's $2,000, I clarified, confused by their sudden concern. You could see the shock on Ken and his parents' faces. I reminded Ken of something I had told him when we got married. This isn't your own house. No, it isn't. I got a bit of a discount on the rent because I asked a real estate agent, I explained. I know if I move out, the rent will go up even more, given that this is a property with disability access, and I've already received several inquiries from people with the same concerns. I recommended that they move out. Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are we going to do now? Ken asked, clearly flustered. I don't know. I did tell Ken. I didn't hear about it. I'll sue you, his mother threatened, her frustration boiling over. I saw that coming, honestly. From an outsider's perspective, it might look like I selfishly got a divorce, broke the lease, and took all the furniture and appliances. But I was sure. I reflected. You can sue, but do you even have the money for it? Ken's face contorted with frustration. It was clear he couldn't afford a lawyer, even if he wanted to. I revealed my ace up my sleeve by showing them some pictures. When did you take these? Ken exclaimed in shock as he saw the images of himself gambling and womanizing. I spent my money on this. I'm ready to use these in court, Ken, I warned. What the hell? I thought everything was going well. Ken's parents expressed their agitation. What's going on? Suddenly, Ken started to apologize. I'm sorry. Please come back. I need you, Michelle, he pleaded, his tone filled with desperation. You're the one who made me leave. We're not married anymore, so what's the point? And do you even care about me? If not, I'll just go. Even Ken's parents started saying sorry beside him. We don't have a home anymore. This was a shock. What do you mean? Our house got taken away because we couldn't pay for it. Ken's family will lose their home in a few weeks. They ran out of money. Ken's dad owed a lot, and it got bigger over time. Ken used to get money from his parents, but when he got married, he probably hoped for more support. Now I get why his mom was nice to me before we got married. I can't do anything for you now. We're not close anymore. Even if my parents and I have nowhere to go, does that not bother you? You caused this situation, right? Can you at least give me the electronics and furniture? You're wealthy, Michelle. Are you going to sell them? His real reason was obvious. I told him firmly that I wouldn't give him anything, not even one piece of furniture or electronics. Please reconsider. Show some kindness. It's too late to say sorry now. You need to figure this out on your own. That's exactly why I'm asking for help. I can't figure it out. I told Ken and his dad, who kept asking. If they couldn't pay the rent, they should leave. The place is in my name, so if I cancel the lease, they have to go. Evicting them was easy. Even if the lease was transferred, Ken probably couldn't afford to live here. I got all this information from the real estate agent. I can't afford the rent, so I decided to cancel the lease. I don't need this place anymore, and since our divorce is final, it's all over. I managed to get the shocked family out and locked the door. What do we do now? I can move to a different place. Goodbye. Places like that must be awful, right? Good luck in that terrible place. Ken probably felt he needed to get the last word in, so he spat out those bitter words. I ignored him and his parents and left. But Ken wasn't done. A few days later, he showed up at the facility where I had moved. What's going on here? Ken looked like he was going to pass out when he saw where I was living. This place isn't bad at all. It's actually a luxury facility worth $1 million. I had saved up money and invested it, and that's how I bought this place. The timing was perfect since the previous occupant had just left. With the money from selling my house and some extra income, I had plenty left over. This facility is great with doctors and helpers on hand. The rooms are like apartments with lots of privacy. It's a 3-bedroom, so families can stay together. There are even couples and families living here. I can call for help whenever I need it, and there's assistance with bathing every day. Originally, I thought this would be my last home, but I'm glad I moved here. You have that much money all along. Why? I don't want you to keep coming here. We're not close anymore. Please go. Then Ken started acting nice all of a sudden, but it felt weird. Can I stay here? What? No, that's not happening. We're not married anymore. Except that. Then let's get married again. I'm staying in a motel. Isn't that sad? I can't find a job because I don't have a permanent address. At the motel, Ken is smooth with his words. It seems like he's forgotten about his own parents. In the end, he's only thinking about himself. Why don't you take a good look at yourself? It's sad to see you living off your parents at your age, being dependent after marriage, and now begging for help. Ken's face turned red. Aren't you embarrassed to be relying on your ex-wife? Look, everyone's watching, right? Residents peeking from their balconies were indeed watching. Actually, I had asked them beforehand to keep an eye out if my ex-husband showed up. I always expected him to come back for some reason. The residents were really helpful. They purposely looked at Ken with sympathy. It's like watching a real-life drama. I want to applaud them. Ken finally noticed the stares and seemed to realize how embarrassing his behavior was. I won't bother you anymore. With a pale face, he muttered those words and left. I doubt he'll come back here again. Later, when I went out, I bumped into my mother-in-law working at a supermarket checkout. My father-in-law worked as a janitor and my mother-in-law was a cashier. As soon as she saw me, she turned away and tried to hide. She was being scolded by a younger employee for her behavior. Ken was introduced to a job by someone he met at the motel cafe, but it turned out to be a poorly paid job where he was being taken advantage of. Meanwhile, I often host home parties and enjoy my life with others from the same facility. I've also made friends with other wheelchair users. If I had known such a supportive community existed, I would have moved here earlier. I make time for physical therapy sessions, and my current goal is to regain the ability to move my legs on my own. Overall, I lead a fulfilling life, both at work and in my personal time.